If you've ever done a photo shoot and wondered what those photos would look like in a different developer, this video is for you. Today we'll be looking at two different types of developer categories, solvent and non-solvent. Another name for the developer is the reducer. This is because the developer reduces the silver halide crystals into blackened metallic silver. This is essentially what takes your film from being a latent image to a visible image. The main difference between the two is that one is fine-grained and one is coarse-grained. The fine-grained solvent developer works by partially dissolving the film grains, making them appear smoother. Generally, you can tell solvent developers because they have solvent in the title, usually the OL like Ilfosol or XTOL. Generally, non-solvent developers like Rodinal tend to have a sharper looking image because the grain is intact and hasn't been dissolved, which leaves for a sharper appearance but also coarser grain. Generally, with large format film, sharpness and grain are not really an issue, so it's not something you have to worry about. So for this, I decided to do roll film instead. I did a simple shoot with this, and I developed the film in XTOL stock and Rodinal 1:25 to get a basic comparison between the two. When you're shooting smaller formats like 35mm and 120, a solvent developer is going to be much more beneficial because with formats that small, your details are going to be obscured by that larger grain. So that solvent developer is going to smooth out all that graininess and bring out the details in your images. Of course, though, there's no right or wrong way to develop your film. So if you're into the grain and that's part of your look, then you'll be much happier with a non-solvent developer like Rodinal. On the left, we have the XTOL and the right is the Rodinal. And the first thing that stands out to me, of course, is the grain. In the lighter areas of the image, you can see a lot of the grittiness from the Rodinal. On the shirt, it's a white shirt that's underneath Spider-Man, and you can see on the right, there's a lot of grittiness in that area, and also on his eyes. The detail is much more smooth on the XTOL version, and on the Rodinal version, his eyes have a gritty look. Closer up, you can get a better look, and you can definitely see some grain in the XTOL version, but it's much more pronounced on the Rodinal version. Here's another Rodinal shot. I think individually they look fine, but in the Rodinal shot, you can definitely see that gritty, sandy look in the out of focus areas. I think it takes away a little bit from the detail, and it can be a little bit distracting, so it all depends on what you're into. In the XTOL image, you can see the detail on the fabric of the shirt without the grain getting in the way. So that's one of the benefits of a solvent developer, is that the grain's not going to obscure the detail. While a non-solvent developer is going to have a sharper look, you can increase the sharpness of the solvent developers by diluting them further. With a diluted solvent developer, you can get increased sharpness, but since the solvent effect is not as great, you're also going to get increased graininess. So if you're someone that likes to experiment, this is great for you because there's a lot of room to play with. So in conclusion, a solvent developer is going to give you your finest grain with a slight loss of sharpness compared to a non-solvent developer. If you're shooting 35mm or 120, I definitely recommend trying a solvent developer. It's going to bring a much different look to your images, and it's going to reduce that grain quite a bit. Have you guys ever wondered how different developers would affect your images? Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time on The Negative.